Hello, ladies, and welcome to another episode of the Autoimmune Rehab Podcast, where, as usual, you can find show notes, links, information about our guest, and all of the other archived back episodes at autoimmunerehab.com. Today, I have Jen, I believe she pronounces her last name Sock, and she'll correct me if I've got that wrong, who's here with us, and she's going to be covering another autoimmune disorder, if you will, that is pretty common, probably I would say maybe one of the more common ones after thyroid disorders, and it's something that we've actually not talked about yet, so I'm excited to have her on. So thanks, Jen, and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. Um, I am actually going to speak as a parent because my son, as I told you, is now he's 19, but at 16 years old, he was diagnosed with Crohn's, which is an IBD. So I am a mom, a wife. I'm in South Florida. And so I could tell you a little bit about about Crohn's. It's uh, in it's he has it mostly in his lower colon. And he probably for about 6 months before just had really bad stomach stuff going on, where he was in the bathroom a lot, like an excruciating pain in the bathroom, multiple times a day, um, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a day, and like an excruciating pain, screaming in the bathroom, which prompted us to go to a doctor
Yeah,
because
of
that was not
course,
normal.
that's really rough. And how old was he at the time again?
He was a sophomore in high school. He was
Oh,
15.
wow, so he's had it for about 4 years now then.
He's had, yeah. So he could have had it longer, I don't know, but that was when he was first started showing, when he became really symptomatic. Yeah, then.
And did you
Um,
have find it pretty easy to get diagnosed? Was he diagnosed with the first doctor, or did it take multiple
no,
attempts?
it was not diagnosed with the first doctor. The first doctor thought it was like IBS, treated it as like IBS, just kind of like irritable bowel. Gave him some medicine to help calm his stomach during the night. And it didn't help. It didn't do anything because it wasn't IBS.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. Um, he he did. There were some other things going on, so he did attempt to do a colonoscopy. However, my son, and I'm happy to talk as much about this as you want because I'm sure there are other people out there that experience this. My son, who was now 16 at the time, had a severe needle phobia. Um, and even though he was an athlete, a lacrosse player, big guy, he had a severe phobia of needles. So even though the doctor said that the colonoscopy would be one way, when we got to the colonoscopy, it didn't happen. So basically, we didn't continue with the first gastro doctor. We actually ended up with a different pediatric gastro, which turned out to be like a blessing in disguise. Um, and the way she went about the whole colonoscopy was great. Like, he actually never, we ended up treating getting him a lot of help for the needle phobia. And he's amazing with that. Like, he could go speak, I think, and help people overcome phobias.
Well, that's
um,
amazing. So how exactly did you do that? I am curious because that is and can be kind of a common problem, and especially when you have any kind of an autoimmune issue, most of us end up getting pricked a lot more frequently
yeah,
than those
sure.
that
I
don't
mean,
have it.
right. Well, you hear Crohn's, and with Crohn's, a lot of the treatments are shots, or you have to have
Hmm.
blood work, routine blood work. I mean, with anything, any going to the doctor. So, I mean, he was terrified. I mean, we we tried hypnotism, we tried exposure therapy, we tried the virtual reality, like goggles. I mean, the numbing creams, the like sensory things. I had visiting lab services come to my house. Like it was, I paid out of pocket because I was like, let him be comfortable here, so
Mhm.
he could be comfortable at home. They could do it here. We don't have to go to like Quest or wherever, the lab and have him wait and like just creates more anxiety. Every time they came, I had to pay them like $100 because they would come and leave. It's just, we tried some anti-anxiety medicine, but honestly, what got him to do it, it was just his own mind over matter. It just was really like he was scared of the unknown of it, and he just got himself to do it.
Wow.
And yeah, so we got to the colonoscopy. So the second doctor got a colonoscopy, and in that colonoscopy, she saw the disease.
Yeah.
And she asked us permission to keep him under so that she could run more tests because she had him under, and getting to that point was not easy. So she kept him under like 6 hours that day, and did the MREs and everything like that, just to get as much data as she could.
Well, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, and I think one lesson to be learned here, as you already kind of pointed out, and most people, depending on where you're at in your autoimmune journey, if you're listening to this, realize that most people don't get their diagnosis with the first doctor. So, you go to one
Right,
doctor and the doctor says it's one thing and you suspect it's something else, or they say, oh, no, everything's normal. Took me three
right,
doctors to get mine. So,
right,
don't just go to one and
exactly.
not get an answer and then say, oh, well, nope, keep going.
Yeah, like, and if it's your child or if it's you, like as a mom, no one knows your child better than you, like a mom
Hmm.
or your child, like the
Yep.
parents, really. Like, so if they're saying that's IBS, if there's something, you have to just trust your gut and trust your instincts and find someone you're really comfortable with, and fight for your child. Like it's like fight for your child and fight for yourself. Whether I mean, I have my own autoimmune stuff, but um, you know, but for Dylan, my son, I mean, we're his biggest advocates. My husband's amazing also, but we're, we knew we had to get him the help. I mean, so when they decided to put him on Humira, which was like the first biologic, because trust me, we had to weigh out different options, and knowing he still had a needle phobia, we had to decide what was going to be. So his disease was like probably moderate. It was like
Okay.
not
Yeah.
mild, but it was moderate. So we knew we kind of had to go to like the bigger treatments. Like we knew we had to get him treatment, like with like a biologic. And we were okay with that because he was suffering. We knew how badly he was suffering. We had seen him suffer so bad. He was like 5'11", almost 6 feet tall, and he was like 130 pounds. Like he was skin and bones. His
Oh,
bones were popping out.
yeah.
Yeah. And he, like I said, he was an athlete, and he was lethargic. I mean, he was exhausted, and he just was not himself. I don't think he had slept through the night in months. And it
Well,
affects your mood also, I mean, of course,
yeah.
because you're not sleeping, you
Yeah,
know.
of course, for sure. Yeah, so did you implement any kind of diet changes or other holistic stuff along with the medicine, or what else did you do to help him out?
It was kind of like learn as we went, like what
Mhm.
would definitely impact him as he went. We were dealing with an extremely picky eater at the time. So we were limited in terms of foods anyways. Actually, as soon as he went on the Humira, he got a huge appetite.
Wow,
It was
that's
like
crazy.
a
Yeah.
new love for food. Yeah.
Wow.
Because I think it did, like, maybe I think so much stuff maybe hurt his stomach. So that once the Humira maybe made him feel better, um, he, was like trying new foods. And I was like, is this my child? Because he never did that ever. But yeah, I mean, he continued going for therapy, and we um yeah, I mean, it was mostly the Humira, that helped, until it didn't. It helped to a point until it didn't help it to a point when we had to switch. Um, so um, we had to try another. medicine. So then he went on to Stelara,
Mm-hmm.
and he was on that, and that stopped working. So he always was on, they always had to tweak his dose. He never, like, whatever, always the starting dose was never enough. He always had to go up, 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 up. He was always on the maximum amount of any medication that you
Well,
could have. Yeah, so he was on the highest dose of Humira weekly. Um, and he was able to do that. And then with Stelara, he was on the highest dose of Stelara, as much as you could have it. And for him, though, also like the calprotectin, like the things that they measure, the blood work and like through the stool samples, things they measure were always like misleading. So it's always good to look at the whole picture. I always tell people, like, you can't just base it on like one test or one thing, because like for my son, even if some things came back normal, like when they would go inside and see the scopes, it had, the disease had spread. So for him, it was like, he was never like an easy case. So even if like the calprotectin was normal, like some things were not normal inside. So you have to like really be comfortable with your doctor and really like take really good notes. And even if it's you or if it's your child, like if it's an older child like my son, I'm so happy he has a good relationship with the doctors and is comfortable, because especially with Crohn's, it's kind of like an uncomfortable disease, especially for a teenager, like to talk about your poop.
yeah, I'm
um,
sure absolutely it would be. Yeah.
yeah, but like both doctors, like, because now we're with an adult GI who has made him feel so comfortable, and the pediatric GI made him feel so comfortable. Because again, a teenage boy, like, does not want to go talk about their poop, but they really helped him, like, in terms of how to monitor things, in terms of like, you know, how many times you're going to the bathroom, and what it looks like and things like that.
That's
There's
awesome for sure. Yeah. And a couple other points too. I've heard that, a lot of times some parents think, when a child just doesn't want to eat food that they're being a picky eater, but I've actually heard that a lot of times it actually can have to do with their digestive system and they're
right,
not just being picky just to be picky. So.
right, exactly. Like that could have been going on, exactly. Because now my son's like the best eater, and we're like, so funny because he never was.
That's awesome. Cool. So flash
Yeah.
forward, it's been about 4 years now, you said. So what's going on now? Is he pretty much under control? How's it going today?
Yeah, so in June, he had a colonoscopy and endoscopy when we switched over to an adult GI, just because even though we loved the pediatric GI, kind of her hands got tied in terms of what she had like what medicine she had available to her in terms of what she could prescribe. So we all worked together and went to see an adult GI who I love. And he did a scope to see, because it had been about a year since, he had one, and it was bad. And so they decided to put him on Skyrizi, which I don't know if you had heard of. They advertise all the time.
I was gonna say, I think I've heard the TV commercials, and
Yeah,
you kind of don't pay much attention to those because you're also thinking, oh, they're kind of scary side effects and
right,
stuff.
right,
But
right. Don't listen to what the side effects are, but
yeah.
because the benefits outweigh the side effects. I mean, at least for my son. So it had been around for psoriasis. It just got FDA cleared for Crohn's.
Oh, okay.
So he was actually one of the first patients in South Florida to get it. And within 4 treatments, he's like 99% in remission.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So when he was home, he's in college, he's away at college. Like, so just as a really good thing, he's 4 hours away. He's like been away at college. He's living his best life. He's really happy and healthy, and the medicine's really helping. So he has to watch. Yes, he watches what he eats. Like, he's in college. He has to be healthy
Be a
and
little bit
can't
wise about not
be a
just
lot wise. He
living
can't,
a
like,
diet of only pizza and chips and not actually eating anything healthy.
right, exactly. He goes to the gym. I mean, he is up. He's about over 200 pounds. He's 6'1", so he's not that like real skinny, frail kid that was first diagnosed. He looks great, and feels good. He has eczema as well,
Hmm.
which I don't know if they consider that autoimmune.
Eczema, it can be part of autoimmune because it's related to a lot of times your gut health and,
Yeah,
I mean,
his
eczema is a little,
systemic.
yeah, so his is a little different, but I know a lot of times eczema can be cleared up with diet, but not always. It kind of just
Yeah,
depends on what they,
he's always
yeah,
had
how it
it.
got there. Yeah, really,
He's
yeah.
always had it. He may have to go on Dupixent, which is another biologic, just
Oh,
because.
okay.
Yeah, like they were hoping maybe the Skyrizi, because Skyrizi does help some skin things,
Yeah.
but we're not touching it because it's got his Crohn's like under control and pretty much cleared up, and so yeah, so he keeps like track of everything, like I said, and if he notices something, he contacts the doctor. Like he has established a relationship with the doctor where if he knows if he's off, he'll tell him. I mean, even though he's 4 hours away, which I think is really good. um he has a good relationship with the office, and which I would recommend to people, like, or keep a log, or just like, keep something like it, so that like maybe you would know, like, if it's whatever you're dealing with, that way you could, tie it back to something. And
Absolutely, yeah, I'd always tell people all the time, no matter what you're dealing with, having some kind of journal or tracker or something that
yeah,
tracks what your symptoms are and what your I mean, in a lot of cases, people that are implementing things even like elimination diets or, going on special kinds of diets, you have to track everything you're eating and consuming so that you can keep a record of what's going on in your body according to
yeah,
certain foods and things and symptoms and even medications, everything. I mean, tracking is really key, I think.
yeah. And what else? I mean, like, you don't have to feel alone. I mean, I know, like, there's a lot of support. Like, I know when my son was diagnosed, I wanted like a connection to somebody else. Like, I wanted
Mhm.
to um, talk to another teenage mom, like a boy of a teenage mom, or a little bit older than Dylan, to just someone to tell me, like, hey, he's gonna be okay. Like, like everything's okay, or this is what happens. And, because sometimes you go into these, like, you start Googling things and it could make you a little,
Yeah.
people, yeah, I mean, people who sometimes who write on there are like people who write like the worst case things. And, um, you know, so you could start worrying and hearing all these things. So I did join like a couple groups, like on Facebook, like for parents of kids with IBD, and I had a monitor, what I was taking in and taking out, because again, like, people were posting a lot of stuff. And um, so yeah, and there's like, even he goes to University of Florida, and there's even a group for parents there to help support each other with like kids with like autoimmune.
Oh,
So
wow,
they,
that's good. That hadn't even occurred to me as a resource, but yeah, that's great that
yeah,
they have something
yeah,
like
there's
that.
a Facebook group for parents, and like, they share if like somebody needs a doctor after a surgery, or a physical therapist, or whatever someone's looking for, like someone needed a lab, or someone was having Remicade or things like that. So there's lots of resources. There's lots of resources.
That's awesome, that's good, yeah, and I'd have to say probably one of the pros, if you will, I guess, of the fact that Crohn's disease has become more common is that there are a lot of more resources than there probably
Yeah,
were, say, 30 years ago when it maybe wasn't as well
yeah,
known.
right, right. Well, there's the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, which we got involved in, and yeah,
Did you find that helpful too?
yeah. I mean, yes and no. Yes, I mean, yes. When Dylan was diagnosed in September of 19, and then it went really into COVID.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like the events and the get-togethers kind of all like that were planned kind of stopped. So I didn't really get to like network with other people as much as I would have liked to. But we did go to a couple walks and things like that, and things
Cool.
like that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So would you have any other words of wisdom or anything else you'd like to tell somebody who's just getting a diagnosis, whether it's Crohn's or some other kind of autoimmune, anything else that you would tell them, whether it's the parent or it's the individual?
Yeah. I mean, like, I mean, like for Dylan, it took 4 years, almost 4 years to get into remission. And
Yeah.
that's amazing, like, but, it might not happen right away, but it could happen. Like, don't give up. Like, there's hope. And, I share the story because I think it's, I'm happy to share his story because, he's living a good, like, you could have Crohn's and you could, have that, but you can also be okay and be off in college. And, sometimes people think of Crohn's like you could be really sick and frail, and he was, but then he got on the right medicine and whatever works for you. There could be many different treatment routes and treatment things and no judgment anyway. Like whatever, I always say, like whatever works for you. Like for Dylan, we knew we had to go one route. But for me, I needed to like I had to like get in with the doctors and meet the right doctor and have that connection with the doctor. So make sure you connect with your doctors, and I think that's super important, regardless of whoever's treating you. Like, take someone with you to the doctor. I know it's could
That's
be
a good
really
piece of advice too, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
it could be really overwhelming, or if someone can't go with you, FaceTime somebody from there, or if you have like an iPhone, FaceTime a loved one or someone who is good at like sometimes my husband couldn't go, or it was during COVID he couldn't go, but we would FaceTime.
That's a
So
great
it was like he
idea.
was there
Love
in the
that.
room.
Yeah.
And that was great because it's overwhelming.
It absolutely is. Well, and a lot of people, like you said, it took 4 years to get into remission. Well, that's actually pretty fast for a lot of autoimmune conditions. Now, a
Right.
lot of people, it's 5, 6. I mean, I've talked to people, it's even 10 years before they get into remission.
Yeah.
So, 4
And
years is actually pretty quick.
right. And remission doesn't mean it's gone anymore. It
No,
means
it
it's in remission
doesn't.
right now. It means it's
Yeah.
in remission right now. It means his disease is like better right now and he's feeling really good for right now. And that's all we can ask. You can't start with the what if next, you just got to stay present right now. And
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So do you have any resources, like are you on social media or anything like that? So if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you, have any methods that they could communicate with you?
sure, Instagram
Okay.
is just Jen Salk,
Okay.
JenSalk. I do have like a website and I do put out a newsletter just because I've been like going on things like this and kind of putting like tools out that I find useful. And that's just my name, jensalk.com.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll link to those in the show notes. So if you
Okay.
feel like you can benefit, go ahead,
Yeah.
visit it, and feel free to subscribe, follow her on Instagram, get on the newsletter
Yeah.
list. That sounds great.
Yeah. Could see my son. I had like a
Yeah.
big, when he was getting his first Skyrizi um, infusion. But
Awesome. Cool. Well, do you have anything else that you want to share before
no,
we
good
hang up
luck.
today?
Yeah. Good luck to everybody.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, great. So thanks for listening, everybody. And as always, if you found this episode helpful, please like, comment, send in your comments, share it, rate this episode and or this show, and look forward to sharing with you another time on autoimmune rehab.